Guys, we live. We live with Max and I'm Rob here, and we doing a show on we doing it on politics and wars, I guess. Gotta talk about the Biden and Trump war, if that's a war you want to call it, but definitely some shots fired. But we got Max here. Max, introduce yourself, man. Let everybody know what we gonna be getting into today.
Hello, everybody. I thank everybody for taking time to tune in and check out the show. I greatly appreciate Rob giving me the opportunity to come on and have a great
Right.
conversation and put on a great show, and I'm looking forward to it. My background, now we're getting a little bit of interference. Let's take care of
That's
that real
cool. All right.
steady the ship there. There we go. I, um, I have a channel, small YouTube channel that I generally speak on sports and life topics. That's the facts, cast sports and life. And I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Rob through the StreamYard app, which we both share.
StreamYard. Yep.
And
Awesome app there.
awesome app.
Yeah.
Can't complain. We were able to get on live with relative ease, I think,
Yeah.
especially compared to the one we just got doing prior to this. I was on another one, and it took about 15 minutes to get all the bugs straightened out. But this one's a lot simpler. Maybe it is the PC interface, the way to go.
Right, right, right.
But
So, yeah, go ahead.
no, I kick it right off to you, Mr. Rob.
Okay, so, the Trump and Biden, would you call yourself a Republican or a Democrat? Which one would you, or do you are like, you don't get into that stuff? What would you call yourself?
I have no political affiliation with either party.
That's great. Me too. Me too. Me too.
I never have. To me, it's whether you want to classify them as kind of a cult or a mob. That's just the way they come off to me. I
Right,
think there's parts of both parties that are good. I think there's parts of both parties that are bad. I think
right,
they know what those parts are, know what they could do to potentially improve them. But when it comes down to it, I would rather just see the best person, male, female. Gender is not an issue. Race is not an issue. Ethnicity is
right.
not an issue. To be that person that we have as that most important temporary employee for 4 years.
Nice, nice, nice. So that's good to hear because I I feel the same way. I would never, I'm just not into a group and joining certain kind of, groups and organization, but and they have that a lot in colleges as well, these little secret society groups, things of that nature. But yeah, uh I definitely don't get into the Republican Democrat, but I find it funny that it is a war of between Democrats and Republicans. So it's like very interesting to me. Um, but Biden or Trump, who would you I'm gonna go over some facts about Trump and Biden that the Washington Post got out. But if you was to think on the top of your head, who would you feel the public, right? When you out or when you're talking to people, who would you feel is the most popular candidate out of Biden and Trump?
If it were popularity right now, without a doubt, hands down, 100%, 1,000% Trump.
Trump, right?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Yeah, yeah,
He's
definitely.
on fire right now. He's
Yeah.
winning caucuses, primaries left and right everywhere he goes. He's just leaving the writings on the wall. And as far as I could see, that we're looking at we're looking at number 47.
Wow, wow. You going as far as saying that. I believe so too. I believe Trump will win. Unless, some kind of indictment happen or, they trying to, find him guilty or something, but I don't think that's gonna happen either. But you never know with the Democrats, man. You never know, anything could happen. So, but I'm definitely pushing for Trump. I'm definitely pushing for Trump. Uh, What about you? How do you feel about Trump?
I love Trump.
Yeah.
I do. I think I've never voted before in my life
Wow.
until I voted for Trump.
Wow. That's big.
Yeah.
That's
I
big.
and it's not because I wasn't able to vote. It had nothing to do with that. It was that every candidate, once I was, of age and able to vote, the candidates that were out there, none of them really spoke to me, and it was a regurgitation of the same thing over and over again, and none of them
Right.
seemed I don't wanna use the word sincere, but genuine in their approach, whereas Donald Trump and looking at Donald Trump, this man does not need money. He
Right.
is not looking for a part-time job anywhere. He doesn't need to Uber. He doesn't need a DoorDash. He donated his salary while he was in office. And for a man like Donald Trump, America has always been great. There has never been a time in Donald Trump's life, and I say this without knowing the man personally, but based on his upbringing, his stature, and the fact that his family comes from means and he's always had means, in my
Right.
eyes, that would easily tell me that for him, America has always been great. And perhaps that same opportunity needs to be more available to the rest of the community, the rest of the population, and the rest of the people. So it's not
Right.
that when he says make America great or make America great again, he's saying that America is terrible, but there's definitely room for improvement. And I think that if I were just to base the small sample size of Donald Trump as a politician of, the 4 years plus an extra year of campaigning versus the enormous sample size of President Biden in politics and what they were able to accomplish, that
Right.
4-year sample size, I hate to say this, but no pun intended, trumps Biden's resume.
Okay, so you saying that whatever Biden did, uh, it didn't. I mean, it was like you didn't feel it. You didn't feel anything. What happened? Me neither. I didn't feel nothing. It was different when Trump was in office. But Biden, a lot of people say with Biden, he just doesn't seem like he's mentally there. What do you feel about how he answer questions, forgets things, and he just looks like he just looks lost sometimes when he's speaking to the public. What do you think about that?
I think it's borderline. I don't want to say elderly abuse, but I'd like to think of it as more like, and I know it sounds funny, and it is funny
Right,
because there's so many memes about it. You can go on and on, but it's more like
right.
elderly exploitation,
Yeah,
and it's not. The man is 82 years old.
right.
He's lived a long life. As we
Mhm.
age, no matter who it is, me, you, my son, who's going to be a grown man, my daughter, who's
Wow.
going to grow to be a woman. As we age, as we develop, though we gain knowledge, we're supposed to gain knowledge. We also lose some things. We lose
Yeah.
strength, we lose height, we lose bone density, we lose muscle mass, we lose a lot of things. And one of
Mhm.
those things that we can lose slowly would be our mind. Now, I don't think that Joe Biden is in a state of dementia or Alzheimer's to where this man is completely incompetent and should have nothing to do with the White House whatsoever, and we ought to just skip the vote and get him out of there and just put Trump in. Nobody's going to say anything. I don't believe that.
You don't believe
I
that?
believe the man is there to do a job. He was voted in. Whether or not I agree with the way it happened doesn't make any difference.
Right.
It, you know, it doesn't change the fact that he's the president. I recognize him as a president, and he's had 4 years to do the best job for this country, for its people, for his constituents. And in my opinion, his build back better platform never came to fruition because
Wow.
nothing is built. The only
Right.
thing back is COVID that I can think of. and
Right.
I don't know that a whole lot's really better.
Right. Right. I can agree. I can agree. It just seems like we went back a step,
Yes.
since he stepped in office. Um,
And I think a lot of it has to do with maybe I'm wrong in this assumption, but I think that having Trump, I felt a lot more comfortable kind of knowing what somebody was thinking and where their mind was at and knowing kind of, you know, the course that they're planning
right.
versus I don't hear from this guy for weeks. Nobody sees him for a month. We don't know where he is. And then you want to kind of keep him as far away from microphones and cameras as possible. No,
Mm.
he's got a State of a Union address coming up, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yep.
there's not going to be a whole lot that he's going to do to be able to not make that speech. So
Right. Right.
you
He's
can only
gonna have to
protect
make
a
that
man
speak.
so much.
Yeah. Yeah. You can only protect him so much. Now, Trump has accused Biden of, using his power of president to, get his home search, kind of get these indictments on him. Trump defense has been claiming that. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that Biden and his camp could have been trying to use tactics on Trump to try to get him out of the office?
I think it would probably go larger and deeper than just Biden. I think it would.
Wow.
I think it would flow over into
The Democratic
our
Party?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
so.
Yeah.
Just because there's, you know, you're going to have a lot more access to find a lot more information that doesn't exist that you already spent public funds on for the course of nearly 4 years on an investigation that was a big nothing burger. So I don't think that people forgot that either. Over the course of 4 years, we elect a gentleman to do his job as a president, and he's not able to do his job because he's constantly being bombarded with accusations of whether it's xenophobia or racism. He's a chauvinist.
Mm,
He's done this or that. It's okay. That's fine. If you want to throw out accusations, you're more than welcome to do so. This is America. This is free
right.
speech. But if you're going to do that, you got to make sure that you can back it up.
Exactly. Exactly. I totally agree. I totally
Empty
agree.
calories are fine and dandy, but you want to fill me up, you got to do it with real food. You got
Right.
to feed me. Don't just tell me something, expect me to believe it. Don't pee on my back and tell me it's raining. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So with Trump, I mean, well with Biden, we know that Trump and Biden it's been a big thing in Atlanta and Fulton County with Fannie Willis. And I've been covering this story on my channel a lot, the Fannie Willis and how she's on a hearing now. Um the defense, well, they're saying that the judge is gonna wait about 2 weeks before he makes a decision on if he's gonna kick Fannie Willis off. What do you think about that whole case of, the Fannie Willis hearing and all the money that they spending on millions of dollars on trying to prosecute Trump? What do you think about that whole mess there in Atlanta?
I think it's just another way to distract and to there again, you're distracting, number 1, and then you're also taking attention away from something else. So, it leads me to wonder, what are you trying to take my mind off of? Are you trying to take my mind off a potential cyber hack that happened a couple weeks ago? Are you trying
Right.
to take my mind off these mysterious weather balloons that came from China that we just thought should probably be
Mm,
shot down? I mean, it's something that there again, not to minimize anything or to marginalize anything. Everything has validity and merit until it doesn't. But it's another political witch hunt in order to have somebody or try to have somebody lose face in order to raise somebody else up in their place. You want to make somebody look bad just because.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with you on that. Now, I got another question for you. Trump, all of his cases that he has been tried against, right? It was Fannie Willis, it was Alvin Braggs, and it was Letitia. I think it was James or something like that. These were all of the Democratic Party, and all three of them were black. Do you think the Democratic Party is really trying to bait racism up on Trump? Because now it seems like a lot of minorities are going after Trump, like they're saying they like Trump. But do you feel like the Democratic Party used that intentionally with all of these three, Fannie Willis, Letitia James, and Alvin Bragg? I hope I'm getting his name right. They all prosecuted Trump. Do you see any is something weird going on there in your eyes, or is this just a coincidence? What do you think?
I think that the Democratic Party as a whole finds ways to find individuals that make wonderful scapegoats and excuses.
Yeah,
And I think with these three individuals, that's exactly what happened. And I don't want to say race baiting, but in a way, it is because
exactly.
you're doing. If you would have had three white Democrats accuse Trump, it wouldn't make the front page.
Exactly. Exactly. I did
Now,
a video about that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's true because nobody cares.
Right.
Trump's white,
Right.
and there again, why is the narrative of Trump being racist pushed at all? From what I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember what year this was. Within the last 15 years, Jennifer Hudson's family and
Hmm.
a terrible, terrible situation that happened with her family. Donald Trump put her up in his hotel, no charge, rent free, just to make sure she was okay. He didn't have to do that. She didn't ask him to do that. He just did it.
Right.
And to me, if he was a racist, that just doesn't seem like a very racist thing to do. I don't know. I could
Right.
be wrong. Maybe he's got us all fooled and he's like the ultimate racist and we just don't know it.
It's just hard for me to believe that. I think that the Democratic Party plays the race game where I think that they use that to their benefit, you know. So I think that's just a tactic that they use and it to go against the Republican Party. That's just a ace in the hole that they use. And a lot of people can't see past it. It's just they, kind of fall into to the marketing of it. So it's like it just sucks for the people that do, but it's good that people are waking up to this, and it's good that people are seeing this. That we're all a human race. So when if we don't look at it at everyone like that, I think it's going to be ways that we can be able to control certain groups. Because it's not we are able to divide. So I just feel like that's just one part I just don't like about the Democratic Party. They do some great things, but that part is what I just don't like at all. That's is kind of embarrassing that they actually take that kind of trope.
Do you think that the Democrat Party, based on their history, and I'm just going to assume that you know about the history of the Democratic Party,
Yeah, yeah. I know about the history of the Democratic Party. Yeah.
do you feel that there's a bit of irony that black voters and the Democratic Party somehow are still in, well, not in, but on good terms? Meaning, I guess the Democrats historically were not the friendliest towards people of color throughout history.
Right.
That narrative didn't change until the middle of the 19th century, where
Right.
we realized, or at least part of the country realized, that something's not right, this is wrong, inequality, fairness, etc. and changes started happening,
Right.
abolitionist, etc. And to me, if I had a group of people that took advantage of me, didn't want me, and took every chance they had at taking a shot at me, I don't know that I would want anything involvement wise to do with that, whether it be a political party or a club or a gang, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So it's confusing to me because I would never vote for somebody that would or had or historically has been known to not have my best interest at heart.
Take advantage. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
use me like I'm at a rally. I got my baby. He wants to kiss it for the camera. He doesn't want to kiss my baby because he loves babies.
Right.
You want to kiss my
Exactly.
baby in front of the camera because you know that's going to make you look good and it's going to get you votes.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. And to piggyback off of what you're saying, but yeah, the history of the Democratic Party using people of color, but I don't think a lot of people understand how deep it is. See, when I went to college for 1 year and I got out of there after that, but I went to a historic black college and I realized that there's fraternities and sororities, right? There are these fraternities and sororities, and as I look back on all of the fraternities and sororities that come out of these HBCUs, all of them try to push the Democratic Party very strong on the intellectuals that come out of these schools. And then we see some of these same intellectuals go in, like I did a video on my channel about Eric Adams. He's in New York and he's a master mason. And it just seems that if it's a coincidence to me or not, but it just seems that it's in cahoots with these fraternities and sororities in the Democratic Party and these churches. I feel like it's a whole cahoots of trying to keep a stronghold of people in color, in my opinion. You know.
It's almost scary that you said that. A good friend of mine that I've known since childhood, his name is Devon Glover. He, after he went and graduated high school here in Kansas City, he went to college to further his education in Arkansas in an all black university, Pine Bluff.
Right.
And he told me, and it's almost like deja vu, almost the exact same thing you just said, that they were pushing him, almost leveraging him towards the Democrats, even on campus. And I said, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "I didn't do anything. I don't care about politics. I just wanted to play baseball." All right. So they left him alone. But that was kind of, you know, is that where it begins as far as recruitment goes, or does it even start earlier than that? There's,
Right.
you know, I'll use my in laws as an example. They will vote Republican no matter who the candidate is, just
Mm,
because they have always voted Republican. And
right.
the same thing with Democrats. You got white Democrats, black Democrats, Hispanic Democrats, Asian Democrats. Same with Republicans, and they will vote for that same party member, whoever it may be, regardless if he or she is qualified to hold a position or not. But based on the fact that historically we've always voted this way, you just continued that same cycle. You know, is it wrong? Is it right? I don't know.
Right. Right. It's just weird, right? Definitely weird.
It's weird because we don't really see any actual change in way of society. And
Right.
society is the one thing we've advanced in technology. We have more information in the palm of our hands to be able to video chat like this that 10, 15 years ago was, a sci-fi movie.
Yep. Couldn't do it. Yeah.
Virtual reality, you can put goggles on and be in a whole new universe right there in your living room. wasn't even in the thoughts. And now everything with the exception of where we are from a point of society and how we haven't grown the same way technology has grown from gasoline combustible engines to electronic
Mm,
vehicles. We're still stagnant sitting here infighting with one another about things as ridiculous as race, which is completely out of our control.
right, right. That's crazy. That's
As
crazy.
people, we're all here for the same reason. We're here to work together. We're here to work together,
Mhm.
and that is number one. Now, if we can get along and work together, that's a bonus.
Right?
But to be
Exactly.
able to work together it's imperative.
Powerful. Yeah,
Now, if we like each other, that's cool. That's great. I'd
right,
love to be able to do that. But
right,
realistically, to make everybody get along and kumbaya and butterflies and rainbows, it's not saying it's impossible. I just don't think we've had the right approach to make it happen yet.
right, right.
I think that if
Well
we
said.
all, and this might sound crazy, but I think if we all got back to reading the good book of what it
Yeah,
says, we would be better off as a people, as a society, as a civilization. Because
yeah,
if we can do something as simple as follow 10 little laws, 10 little laws, just the
right.
first, just those 10 commandments, we will live a healthy life.
Yep.
Live a clean, healthy, beautiful life.
I agree. I agree. I agree, Max. That was well said. Well said. Uh, let's get in a little bit of Putin, but I want to keep it a little bit on Trump. Trump and Putin. Do you think Trump and Putin are cool, or you think they got a little relationship there, or do you think how do you feel? Because I think Putin been taking some shots at Biden, and how do you feel that Trump and Putin? How do you think their relationship is, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I believe that Biden had never had a real relationship to begin with Putin to begin with. Obama, he went over to the visit with Putin once, and it was a very awkward, uncomfortable situation to even watch. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw the video of it or not, where they're drinking.
didn't see it. They were drinking tequila.
No, no, tea.
Oh, okay.
In Russia, a teapot is called a samovar. So they're sitting at this table, and they've got somebody serving them, and next to them is this samovar where they make the tea. So it's fresh brewed, delicious tea, hot tea. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And they serve the tea. Putin has his tea. Obama has his tea. Putin starts to drink his tea. Obama looks at the tea and just stares at it, puts it down. It's just an awkward conversation between the two of them, just an awkward interaction. And then with Biden, I don't know how many times Biden and Putin actually met one another. And I'm trying to
Right,
go back as far as early 2000, end of 99, and Biden at no point was ever in a position or appointed to where he was an envoy to Russia to where he would have necessarily had an opportunity to meet him. But that's not to say that they've never met. But the
right,
relationship based on how they act with one another on media wise and how they speak of each other, one respects the other and the other does not.
right.
With Trump, I think the respect was mutual because as much as Putin is a leader or a dictator or whatever you want to call him, he's also a businessman.
Hmm.
And
Businessmen respect businessmen. Yeah.
yes, they do,
Yeah,
really do,
they do. Yeah.
because they think on a different level. They think on terms. They think on, I don't want to say necessarily a higher level, but they see the forest past the trees. They're playing the long game. They're not looking at it short sighted whether or not they've got a temporary position or not. They don't see it that way.
Right.
And they look at their resume and see their track record, know that they've been successful, know what it takes to be successful, implement that, and I think that in itself is a mutually respectable thing. Whereas Biden, I, it just doesn't resonate with me. There's
Right.
nothing exciting about it. A blatant misuse of power between Ukraine and China. You don't have to be a political analyst to figure out is
To see
wrong.
that, right?
Yeah, I didn't like the way that whole thing went down. It was just and it's still the same, but worse. It's money
Right.
laundering on a huge scale.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought that up. Zelensky, I think he's the president of Ukraine.
Mhm.
It's been a lot of money donated to Zelensky. Okay, billions and billions of dollars. How do you feel? Do you feel that that was money laundering that Biden was doing to the Ukraine, and some of that money was funneling back? How do you feel about
Yes, 100%. And it's
that?
not because it's a known fact that Ukraine is the poorest, most corrupt European country,
Right.
but the people that run Ukraine are the problem. What and this is going back in history now, and I don't know if we're ready for history yet, but as far as the monies, I was going to say tens of billions, but it's eclipsed that. It's over 100 billion. I think it was like $124 billion.
Right.
Just an absolute insane amount of money. You could buy the whole country for that much and rebuild it from scratch, make it like new. So I think that a lot of that money is going to get kicked back to the powers that be here on the state side. It's not going to be as
Exactly.
taxpayers. We're not going to get anything from it. I promise you that. But without a doubt, 100%, it's a racket. 100%. There's no doubt. There is nothing that important in Ukraine that we are giving that much aid and money to keep this war going. There's
Exactly.
not enough resources there to justify any of it. It's madness.
Madness, yeah. That's definitely what I thought every time I seen Zelensky coming over here, begging for billions and billions of dollars. It was like, this doesn't make sense,
It
you
was,
know?
I'll tell you a story. When the Soviet Union originally dissolved back in the early 90s, the Russians, or the old Soviets, whatever you want to call them, they had a lot of weapons still, okay? And the U.S. made the treaty with the Russians, former Soviets, whatever you want to call them, to get rid of all these weapons, dispose of a lot of these weapons that we no longer need in stockpile. And the
Right.
Russians said, okay, but we need help. And you said, United States, so what kind of help do you guys need? And they're like, oh, we're going to need some financial help. The United States said, no problem. So they kept giving them money, giving them more money, giving them more money. And Soviet Union took the weapons and just sold them. They took the money from the United States without a problem. And they got rid of the weapons just like they said they would, but they sold them. So they
Right.
lied or they didn't lie, but either way, the U.S. is sitting there and they're broke because of it. They didn't get broke because of it, but they lost a lot of money and they paid Russians a lot of money to get rid of weapons, but they never told them how to get rid of the weapons. They never said, okay, you go ahead and sell them. We're going to give you the money for them anyway. So,
Wow.
funny story when
Wow.
it comes to that. It's unbelievable. And then you get
Wow.
into the 80s when Russia was nearing the end as they're in Afghanistan, fighting the Mujahideen, kind of like what's happening in the Ukraine right now, but on a
Right.
different kind of scale. And on the other side of the coin, we've got the CIA and the United States government funding the Mujahideen, i.e.,
Mm.
Osama bin Laden, who later became a very well known, not so US friendly individual.
Right. Right.
And then at the same time, we're doing that and funding the Mujahideen, we're also pimping out cocaine and millions of dollars down south in Panama, okay? And between the between the Contra
The
affair,
Contra.
yeah,
Yeah. So glad you mentioned that. CIA has been getting money for decades.
criminals
Yeah.
act.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's just crazy to just think about that. How many people have just been affected by that whole, that money game that they're playing over there in Contra. But
But that's how
you
they
were
did it. But
yeah,
that's how they
that's
did it. Iran Contra. They were selling and getting. They were
yeah,
they were dope dealers. They were drug runners. They were
yeah.
gun runners. They were
Hmm.
doing it all. We're talking about the U.S. government.
Right. Crazy, right?
Like, no problem. And then you go to watch the hearings. And I remember watching the hearings. It wasn't anything exciting by any means, but I remember watching them. And Oliver North and all these guys, they stood by their convictions, and they never, they never wavered. They never wavered. They weren't ashamed of it. They weren't embarrassed. They were proud of it almost. I'm like, wow, you guys are proud of funding wars, having
Yeah.
people die, bringing in drugs into this country that poisoned so many
People.
communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Sad.
guys did that. You
Yeah.
guys.
Still doing it to this day. Still going on right now. It's just too much money that it's seeing. That's probably one of the top. And not only that, it's a lot of drugs now that I don't know if they got something to do with, but I also heard that they had to be funded some things in Mexico as well. That whole, Mexican cartels and all of that is being funded as well. So it's just crazy.
It is crazy. And then you think about, why were we in Afghanistan so long? What is in Afghanistan other than a lot of mountains, rocks, and caves that the
Right.
Soviets bombed for 10 years? Ah, opium,
Mhm.
opium. A lot of money in opium. During Vietnam, the Golden Triangle, they smuggled so much heroin, so much drugs from Vietnam back to the States and back and forth, and all the soldiers that were doing the drugs, getting high, getting addicted, coming back to the States strung out. Can you believe we lost that war?
Mm.
It's yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
it is crazy.
It's nuts. So you were born in the Soviet Union, correct?
Yes, sir.
I
In
remember you
Moscow.
said that. Okay, in Moscow. Okay, okay. And now I don't know if you heard about Sam Bankman-Fried. You heard about him, right?
One more time, I'm
Sam Bankman-Fried.
Sam back.
So Sam Bankman-Fried is the individual who started FTX, the crypto company, and he scammed people out of $10 billion. He sent some of that money to help Ukraine and also sent some money to the Democratic Party. Okay, lots of money. He's recently just said that he's eligible to get up to like 50 years in prison. But he told the judge that, he thinks that he should get 6, maybe 5 years. I don't know if you've been following that. What do you think the punishment should be for robbing Americans of $10 billion and funneling money to the Democratic Party and to the, Ukraine? It was some money sent there. What do you think about all of that? Like,
I think that he is not going to be treated the same way that you and I would,
wow,
and he should be.
right,
He should be held just as accountable as anybody else. I
right,
think that a person that steals a pack of gum is just as much a thief as a person that steals $1,000,000 and robs a bank. There's no difference.
yeah,
They're
thief is
still
a thief.
stealing.
Robbery, yeah, robbery is robbery. Yeah,
So his status, his celebrity, his fame, his fortune, none of that excludes him or exempts him from being held accountable for the crimes committed against the people of this country.
Right.
It's not just one individual that he took money from. He took money that didn't belong to him, that belonged to us.
Yeah.
Without our permission, without our consent, we didn't sign off on that.
Mhm.
So, if anything, a new precedent may be set that perhaps the people have some say, since it was the people's money that was taken.
Right.
I think that would be a good little switcheroo
Yeah.
instead of having somebody that might not necessarily be as, there might be more leniency from a judge than there would be from the public, because regular
Exactly.
people take things a little more personal than those that have more than they do. But
Mhm.
those with means versus those without means seem to somehow always get the better of us. It's,
Mhm.
and is it because
Yeah.
they have means and we don't? Maybe. There's certain things that they can afford that others can't, and that's understandable. But at the same time, they probably had to work for that money too in most cases. I don't think anybody necessarily gets things handed to them. Sure, people win lotteries, people get inheritance, trust funds are a real thing. But for the
Right.
most part, I think that regular people can resonate a lot easier with other people of like mindedness.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree. Definitely agree. Now we went to the wars. We talked about the uh Ukraine and Russia, but Israel and Gaza. Okay. You want to give us because you are Jewish, correct?
I am.
You are. You want to give us a little history of, Israel before we get into some questions about that Israel and Gaza. I got some very interesting questions to see where your head's at with that.
Sure. Now, Israel has always been there, and with Israel, there has been a colonial British mandate from, you know, since British colonial times, a mandate, and that mandate was called Palestine.
Hmm.
Now, Palestine is a place no different than Orlando, Florida is a place, or Kansas City, Missouri is a place.
Right.
Now, this mandate that the British had over Palestine was right after the First World War, if I'm not mistaken. Prior to that, that entire area was a part of the Ottoman Empire. From, let me double check when the Ottomans had it. I want to say 17. Just double check on notes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So from 1517, the Ottoman Empire, they conquered the region. They ruled it until the British conquered it in 1917, which is when it became the British Mandate slash British satellite, just like many other British satellites throughout the world at that time.
Right.
There's, you got Australia, British satellite. You've got British satellites in Canada, etc. So this was no different. So
Right.
before it was a part of colonial Britain, it was part of the Ottoman Empire.
Right.
So after that, 1917, we had, well, let me backtrack a little bit. In the Russian Federation or Imperial Russia, and this would have been during the course of the 19th century,
Right.
right around 1830, the Zionist movement began. And the
Hmm.
Zionist movement began in Imperial Russia.
Hmm.
And it was started by Jews advocating for their own state, which was Israel. And it already existed. And the Zionist movement took place and started, like I said, in Russia, and it became more and more popular as the Jewish people, whether they were on the European side, where a lot of the majority of them were, had many means and were very well off. There are to say that Jews run certain things is not necessarily untrue. They are very influential and own many, many things, and it's been that way
Oh,
throughout
huh?
history.
Okay.
And,
Wow.
and the power and the influence they had while being persecuted in Russia and still being able to create the Zionist movement, which is what carried over after the Second World War in response to the plight of the Jews. There was the creation of Israel, which was decided primarily by the former Soviet Union, the
Mhm.
United States, Great Britain, who had the territory until the mandate ran out,
Right.
the United Nations. The Soviet Union and the United States advocated harder than anybody else, and because of the Soviet Union, and even though they persecuted these Jews and these Zionists for, 200 plus years, they were the biggest advocate for them to have their own state. And that is what happened. And in 1948, May 14th, Israel was created.
Mm. Wow.
So basically, you have a bunch of Russian Jews that have been persecuted for a couple of hundred plus years, and they are demanding that they are allowed to go back to their biblical homeland, which was promised to them by God as
Wow.
as their birthright, even if you want to call it that. That's how serious they were about it, and it was serious enough to where after the Second World War, that was the consolation. Here is Israel and Palestine. You can go back and read any part of the Bible you want. You can read about Phoenicians.
Right.
You'll read about them. They're a real group of people. They existed 100%, no doubt. There's proof of it. You can find documented proof of it. They exist. Real people. Palestinians is a generalized term for wanderer. So the term itself is more or less based on I know I don't want to say nomads, but more or less wanderers slash nomads. And that's why the Philistines, the Phoenicians, those
Mhm.
are their own separate people that you've heard of. But if you go back, I don't care what book you read, there is no such thing as a Palestinian.
Wow.
Just like if I said I got a friend, his name is Rob, he's down in Florida, he's a Floridian. It means absolutely nothing. Floridian is just somebody who lives in Florida.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
You said something big though. You said that um the Jewish they do run a lot of and control a lot of things, very powerful.
oh yeah,
Um yeah. Now when you mentioned about the Israel, I mean, you mentioned about the Palestine, they were wanderers. That Gaza, do you think the people in Gaza or Palestine, do you feel like they feel like their land was taken from them?
I think that it doesn't have anything to do with the land that was
Right.
taken from them because it wasn't their land to begin with. It was given to them to live on temporarily. It was never their land. They never purchased it from anybody. They never owned it in any way, shape, or form. It was a colonial mandate. It belonged to Britain. They had the final say on what happens to it. The people that live there were just, you know, people that live in Iran or Persia, however you want to call it, are Iranians. So gender, or basically, it came down to the Palestinians, which are just another Arab group. And I'm not saying anything bad about Arabs. I have
Right.
no issues with Arabs at all. They're but they're just another group of Arabs. And what it, what I think it is there are such things as natural enemies, snake,
Mm.
mongoose, or whether it be even a cat and a mouse. Natural enemies exist, and they've always been that way. There is this tiny little plot of land in the middle of North Africa,
Africa. Yeah.
yeah, that is surrounded by Arab lands and Arab peoples that don't particularly like that. They don't like they don't like the Jews. There's nothing that you could say or do to make that change. And there's been fighting ever since, and even before the creation of Israel, when it was still World War II and Hitler had his Africa
Yeah.
campaign. We had the Mufti down there, and the Mufti was in charge of the Arabs, the Muslims down there, and they would kill as many Jews as they could.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was just as
Question.
much genocide going
Back
on in
then.
the Middle East as there was in Europe.
Wow. Question. I don't know if you heard, but in the United States, it's been a lot of talk about uh there are people that are in there's some people in a town of Africa. I think they call the Hoba people, that they actually practice the same religion as the Jewish people in Israel, and they
Mhm.
call themselves Jewish people. In your recollection, could Jewish be different shades of colors? Could it be people of color that could be Jews as well practicing the same, or do you think is no way, or maybe they're practicing a different uh Jewish culture than the one that's in Israel? Do you feel like it's any correlation there, or you feel like it's just a misunderstanding? How do you feel about that?
I think that everybody who is Jewish is Jewish.
Right.
So when it comes to that, I think it's going to be, I don't want to say universal, but a pretty straightforward blueprint. You're Jewish, you're Jewish. If you're a Judeo-Christian, you're a Judeo-Christian, to where you're still Jewish, you're Jewish, but you believe in Jesus. Okay. Then you got your Orthodox Jews, which are your hardcore, got the tzitzis on, you got your long braid
Yeah.
hair, you got your big hats, and you know, so I think every sect of Jew is going to be the same in what they believe in to a point, because the same thing is being taught, but they might look completely different.
Hmm.
And whether, I've I've know I wouldn't say several, but at least 10 to 12 black Jews, a couple
Right.
of them who've converted, and then others that, from and this also goes back to whether or not you want to believe that everything is going to be from the maternal side of things. Your mother was Jewish, that means you're Jewish. If your dad was Jewish, you're only half Jewish, but you still got Jewish
Right.
blood in you anyway it goes. So that's
Right.
the other side of some of my other Jewish friends of color, but still Jewish. They're still Jewish.
Right.
I think that a lot of it has to do with how they practice, because a lot of Jews, at least the ones I've seen out here, they're not as orthodox and as acidic, if you will, as some of the ones you'd see, like the ones you saw in New York. Like
Right.
those guys, they're the real deal. And, their God is there all the time, and he could be, he's a jealous God. He said so. So
Right.
they take that more serious than anything else.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. it was definitely interesting to see how that, but that's just been a real in America, has been a lot of talks about, and you said something about, the Jewish people are very powerful. And in the music industry, we hear about a lot of the power of the Jewish people as far as the record labels and stuff like that. So I think they get I think because of the power, I think they get a definitely a certain kind of rap comes with that because they feel like power, people don't like too much power and they don't have any, you know what I mean? So how do you feel about that look of pretty much Israel and people that's Jewish and that look that they have from in America perspective? How do you feel, you know?
I think honestly, I think there's a parallel between Jewish people in America and black people in America. And
Wow.
here's why I say that. A white person talking to another white person with a black person nearby is never going to drop a hard end. It's never going to
Right.
happen. It's not going to happen because I would like to say they don't want to disrespect their friends, but
Right.
in reality, they don't want to get their ass kicked.
Right.
Now, if I've got the same scenario and somebody says, Jew you down, or he's trying to be a Jew, nobody ever really overreacts to it. Nobody ever goes crazy about it. Why? Because the Jews have this reputation, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why, of being passive. They just let it slide off like it doesn't bother them. But the stigma of being associated with being a cheapskate and then trying to get over on people by Jewing them down, I don't know how that's any different than anybody else who negotiates any business venture, deal, etc. You're obviously going to try to negotiate for the best price just as you would anybody else.
Right.
So
Right.
it's nonsensical. It doesn't upset me. Like you can say it to me, and I'll just look at you. And I'm like, I'm not going to Jew you down, but I'll negotiate with you because I don't know what Jewing you down means, but I know
Right.
what negotiation means. But there's guys that you say that to, and they will get they'll be ready to fight,
Right.
just like I think my black friends would be if somebody
Right.
were to say a derogatory word to them. It's on.
Exactly.
It's it. It's over. You did it.
Right.
Now it's
Mhm.
you got to own it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think the stigma of the Jewish people, especially here in America, comes from sensationalism, m- misinformation, and then the
Yeah.
fact that nobody is going to sit there, stand up for the Jews to be like, no, this is how it really is. Check this out. I mean, there's still people out there that don't believe the Holocaust existed. It never happened.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how am I going to get through to this person?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I had a great story about when I went to New York and it was an American white guy and he told me he was speaking bad about the Jewish community, you know. But how I seen the Jewish community, I looked at it and I was like, oh man, that's nice how they stick together. They didn't want to plot of land, but it shocked me that when I was in the guy's house, it was an American white man, to see him talk bad about the Jewish people. And I was kind of like, I was confused. Then I understood that, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter there because I was in the mind frame of thinking that, it wasn't no, the difference was just so different. And then I realized that from hearing him and hearing a lot of New Yorkers, really didn't like how, the Jewish community was actually living. They didn't like that. And it shocked me. Made me feel like, wow, so I can see, what people are talking about, how people look down on Jews. I never actually experienced another, you know, a white American man, talking about the Jewish community. So, um,
Did
your
that
point,
surprise you more because they were of the same color?
yeah, it surprised me because I didn't expect that, and I was sitting there just kind of stuck, like, for a minute, and it to think about it. But then as I was in New York longer, it was much more of, much more why Americans didn't like the way how the Jewish community moved, how they lived, how they, came together. And I was very shocked about that. But is that something normal? Do you feel that it's a lot of, white Americans that just don't like how the Jewish community move? And I think they were unorthodox Jews, right? The ones that stick together, stay in the
Oh, the
community,
Orthodox, yeah.
go to church. That's unorthodox, right? Um, is that common to you? Would you see that that's common, or would you feel that, what do you think about that?
If I had to summarize it, I would say that people, when you're on top and you're successful, whether it be
Mm,
wealth, whether it be status, however you measure success,
right,
then people are always going to try to take you down and take shots at you. You
right.
know, that's just the way. It's just the way it's always been, and it doesn't matter who it is. But with
Yeah.
Jewish people, they get such a stigma that, as powerful as they may be, they are not the most powerful people on the planet. There are plenty of people with power on this planet. The one percenters outnumber the 99% by far. And out of those one percenters, I'm sure that less than half of those people are Jewish. But they treat and think that Jews, kind of like, you tell somebody you're a business owner, automatically people assume that you got money, you're rich.
Yeah.
But that's not generally the case.
Not the
You're a
case.
small
Yeah.
business owner, you're paying the bills and trying to keep your head above water. Money will come, but you just got to stay with it. And
Right.
people just think that Jews all have money and that we hide it under our pillows. We got like a strong box buried in the backyard somewhere, and
Right.
we're that's not true. But in some cases, I could see where that stereotype would come from because even during the World War II, where the Nazis were taking everything that the Jewish people owned, their clothes, their gold, their money, the hat off their heads, whatever they could take, they had nothing left. So I think that when people say Jews are tight, it's not that they're tight, it's just they've already lost so much that they don't want to ever have to go through that again.
Mm, it
Oh,
makes
he's
sense.
so tight. No, it's not that he's tight. It's just he remembers history. He remembers what his parents told him. He remembers what the grandparents told him and how it was growing up. So my grandma and my other grandma were both in Ukraine during the course of the Second World War, and both of my granddads were fighting. They were actually both in Stalingrad, and in the Ukraine, my grandmothers, they both they spoke German and Yiddish, and
Mhm.
they didn't they didn't help the Germans, the Nazis, but they didn't make any effort to try to be the first ones to get shot either,
Right.
because they saw what happened to the other people that got a little too smart. So
Wow.
listening to those stories when I was growing up and hearing about the atrocities of war and the terrible things that human beings do to one another, you know, I don't want to see that snowball into this generation in this present time and era, but I can also see it happening very easily.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Wow. Wow. So, man, we covered a lot. We covered a lot of good stuff, man. We covered the history of Israel. We covered a lot of good takes, man. I learned a lot, man, from this conversation. It was actually very, very interesting. See if I can chop this thing up and break it down in short videos for people. I think we really gave some real gems out, and you answered some questions pretty, that was pretty good.
Thank
What you think about the session here?
I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought it was insightful, I thought it was entertaining, and I
Yeah.
thought it was educational to where, it's thought provoking. You could take something out of it and leave going and asking yourself a question that may or may not have been answered here, but it'll leave you and want to find that answer if you didn't find it here. I think it went in that direction to want you to ask more and want to find out more
Right.
and
Right.
then see what the next chapter is we live to see what the future holds, and the future is a mere what, another 7 months away, and we're in election season full on.
Right, right. Definitely an election season. This is a big year for that. This is a big year for that. But yeah, we definitely got to do this again. We touched on some great topics, man. I definitely like this probably one of the most interesting videos that definitely I probably did, on my channel.
I
So
know that you had mentioned to me before that you normally go solo, and this is the first time that you'd had somebody on.
yeah, on my channel. First time I had somebody on my channel. I never did that before. So I think this is real good. I'm gonna try to break up sections of this video because people like videos that's short. I'm gonna still put on the whole video, but just to get it more structured so I can have a topic, pretty good. I'm gonna try to cut this thing up. But I definitely want to do more of this with you. I definitely like your concepts. You're able to hit on a lot of subjects, sports. Like me, you're very well diverse in
Thank you.
sports, yeah, politics, history. So very much like that a lot. I got my batteries going dead here. Let me plug this in. But definitely though, Max. I appreciate your time here. We definitely going my battery's running dead here. Got a little bit. But hey, it was great to have you on, man. We definitely got to do this again. Pick some other subjects. But it was great, man. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you for doing this.
I appreciate you, brother, and I got one question for you before I leave, if that's
Go ahead.
okay.
Yeah, go
How
ahead.
many how many parts per million of fluoride is considered unsafe in water?
How many parts per million of fluoride is considered unsafe? Well, actually, they actually allow fluoride in your water. And I tell people all the time that I don't think fluoride is good in your water. I think Hitler actually had fluoride in the water in the
Nazi Germany.
Holocaust. Yeah, in
And
Germany.
here's
So,
why I bring that up. Oh, people don't realize one thing about fluoride. It is a naturally occurring mineral substance
mineral.
in
Yeah.
rocks and other things in dirt, but
Right.
the way that fluoride and the level that we see it now and why it's in the water is because the byproduct of the manufacturing of aluminum is fluoride, and that's how
Wow.
we got fluoride.
Are you
Nazis
serious?
are Nazis are amazing. They keep me nonstop. Yeah,
So what do you think is the cause of when you have fluoride in your water? What is the effects that do to you?
based on what I've read, the amount of fluoride that we get right now is not enough to cause tooth decay, even though we drink the water that has the fluoride, we use the toothpaste that has the fluoride. But just like anything else, if you have too much of something, it's a bad thing. You can Too much of anything's a bad thing. You drink too much water,
Right.
you can die.
Yeah,
So
right, right.
as much fluoride as they put in the water and then they treat it, and as much fluoride as they use in toothpaste and we use it, it is still not enough to cause us harm. So, in that sense, it's relatively safe, and it has been for decades now. So, there's no reason to change things. But one thing they have changed or try to keep a little more discreet and clandestine is how they dispose of all that fluoride because they're still making aluminum and fluoride
Right.
is still gonna be the byproduct of that aluminum. So,
Right.
yeah,
Wow.
And if you get too little fluoride, like, for example, there's no fluoridization of the water in Mexico whatsoever. And if you've spoken with people that are from Mexico, you'll see that a lot of times they have fillings. And a lot of times their teeth, if they're not there, they're missing, they'll have gold teeth or no teeth at all. The reason is because they don't get enough fluoride, and that is what that effect is. So
Mm.
to over fluorinate is much less likely than to under fluorinate, and that result is tooth loss, tooth decay.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. Never I was like you said, I was, I knew that Hitler did with fluoride, and I was wondering why did he do it? Why would he put fluoride in the water? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, I didn't really come to any conclusion about it, but I just learned something today about fluoride. So that is crazy. What do you think about chlorine in your water?
Kind of the same type of principle behind it. The backstory is also different. It's naturally occurring in small amounts throughout things that are organically here, dirt, rocks, etc. And too much chlorine will kill you.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there's a level that you measure on parts per million when you do in a
Water
lab. And
test.
yes,
Yeah.
that parts per million, if they exceed X amount, then water is not safe to drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or whether it be
Definitely.
a heavy metal contaminant like lead, for example. Too many
Right.
parts per million, this water is no longer drinkable. So
Right.
as long as we keep within that parameter that we've set to be or deemed to be safe, then none the wiser.
None the wiser. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely with the chlorine. But I'm glad you mentioned lead because I've been speaking about it's crazy that in certain communities where crime is high, it's crazy that the lead is higher than in places where crime isn't as high. So it doesn't mean that has any correlation, but it's just studies that show that, lead is a lot higher in higher crime areas. So that's pretty weird, right?
That is pretty weird, and generally, when you speak about higher crime areas, we're talking about clearly, we're not talking about rural areas in the middle of nowhere. We're talking
No,
about more dense
big city areas.
city-type
Yeah.
urban
Yeah.
environments, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, and this is where it always comes into race, the
Yeah.
majority
Yeah.
of the people that get affected by
It's people of
whether
color.
yes,
Yeah. Mhm.
yes,
So,
and I hate it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's what it is. But it's like, hey, I'm in a book right now. It's a book that I read, but I kind of push this on everybody, and it's called environmental racism. It's a lot, like you said, of people of color. The environment sometimes is not as safe as it would be in areas where that is nicer, that is better. So it's kind of good to spread that word out and let people understand that, it's good to be aware of knowing, the kind of air you breathe, the kind of stuff that's in the water and where you're at with it. But like you said, it is a lot in the low urban communities where the environment is not that safe, as far as not even talking about crime, but I'm just speaking on health wise.
Literally, the air we breathe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
and where's
man,
the outrage? Where's the outrage?
right. No outrage for that. So
It's
glad
just
you
a
brought
little
that up.
too dark.
Yeah, yeah, little too, but it's something that I've been on and I've been kind of preaching a lot. But he says just, maybe more awareness that we put into, but it's a sad situation. Definitely.
We keep pushing, we can make it better.
Can definitely make it better. Definitely make it better. Man. All right, Max, man. I mean, listen, this was amazing conversation, man. I'm so inspired to have more of these with you, man. I just feel like I got a new, seems like I connect real good with you on these conversations, and we right up the alley. How you knew about the water? I feel like we are, uh, brothers from another mother. You
That's
know.
right. I've got a new friend named Rob. I met him the other day. He's super
Yeah,
cool.
for real, for
He's
real.
got a
So
Dodgers hat on, so I know he likes Showtime.
yeah, for real. Now the Florida Marlins are my favorite team, but I love the Dodgers blue, man. I just love that team, man.
I dig it.
But dig it. So, all right, Max, man, we gonna chat. We gonna talk and see if next time we can do this again, man. Probably got to make this a once a week thing or something like that. We get into politics and stuff.
I love it.
Love it, love it.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Listen, I appreciate everybody for watching, tuning in. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to Max. You can find him on Facebook. I'll leave it on my description. Give your Facebook and your YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
That's the Max Cast Sports and Life Show.
Max Cash Sports and Life Show. And mine is Water God TV. I just talk about health, wealth, and a better understanding of self. So,
Mm.
hey, guys, I thank y'all for checking in. Thank you, Max. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Y'all have a good night.
Be good, brother.
You too, bro.